Now, I'll be taking you through a live demonstration of our regulatory change management solution, a platform designed to transform how compliance teams monitor, assess, and act upon ever-evolving regulatory changes. Let's begin. I'm currently logged in as Able Tutor, a compliance professional. To access regulatory change management landing page, I navigate to Workspace and then Compliance Workspace. This takes me to the RCM landing page, which is truly the command center for any compliance professional. Here I get a holistic view of everything that matters, from activity overview that captures details around alerts, be it in any state such as new, in progress, impact assessment deferred, the associated change task corresponding to those alerts and their individual states, followed by the alert details such as alert by overall impact, impacted entities, taxonomy alerts. We also find details around the tracking information that is being captured for the regulatory alerts, followed by the overall trends such as open alerts for 12 months and trend by taxonomy, which can further be drilled down on the basis of jurisdiction, themes, sectors, regulatory body, and even content types. Now let's take a real example. Out of the given inventory of alerts that I have, I might be interested in some alerts. Let's say, for example, here it might be related to some EU rules. Let's pick up this example. Currently, I'm analyzing an alert that reads or talks about EU rules that apply on general purpose AI models that start to apply on bringing more transparency, safety, and accountability. It highlights the new obligations under the EU AI Act that providers placing general purpose AI models on the EU market must now meet specific transparency and copyright obligations. As part of my initial triage, in order to understand what exactly is happening on this particular regulatory alert, I leverage AI to quickly summarize and get details around this alert. I hit on summarize. So now this presents me an information on the basis of the information that is present on this regulatory alert, highlighting the important dates, regulatory authority broken down into regulatory agency, types of jurisdictions, sectors, and even content types, summary of some key changes around what has changed, who will be impacted, and overall business impact. It also highlights the penalties and fines, if any, that is attached to this regulatory alert as part of the information that I already have now. So this serves as a solid starting point for me to understand the overall posture of this regulatory alert. Now that I have idea about what this alert is all about, I would even like to strengthen my understanding about this regulatory alert by getting any up-to-date and relevant information that might be present as part of this regulatory alert over the internet. But I don't have to manually go in and search for any relevant information about this particular regulatory alert, which is where we have integrated this powerful tool within RCM solution that will help us get all of this information with just a click of a button. So I click on Ask Now Assist and Get Analysis. What this would do is trigger the Now Assist panel that is integrated within this solution. So it will present me with two options. The first option being enrich with web sources, where the agents would go behind the scenes and get me all the relevant information around this regulatory alert by performing a web search. And the second is recommend impacted areas, where on the basis of the information that I have on my regulatory alert, AI would automatically detect certain inventory of library items that is already part of my solution and recommend what exactly needs to happen, what exactly needs to change, or what exactly are the potential impacts around those on the basis of the information on my regulatory alert. So for now, I go ahead and type one. Behind the scenes, this triggers our web search agent, an intelligent assistant that scans the global regulatory landscape in real time, fetching the latest and most relevant insights about this alert. Earlier, I would spend hours browsing, comparing, and even compiling data manually. Now my agents do it for me effortlessly. Within moments, I receive a beautifully structured information that includes up-to-date analysis from the trusted sources, key highlights and implications, penalties and compliance timelines, associated taxonomy, even the source references used to derive this analysis. Once I have this context, I can save the information directly into the newly created Enriched Insights field that would create a living document that evolves with the regulatory landscape. And this is where my information is stored in the newly created field that I just told you about. Next, the agent would ask me whether it would like to recommend impacted areas for me or not. I would go ahead and type in yes. Now the agent performs a semantic search across my internal compliance library, scanning citations, control objectives, controls, and policies, and maps them contextually to this regulatory alert. This is not just keyword matching. This is understanding the language of the regulation, linking the intent of a rule to your exact organizational controls and documentation. Once the analysis is complete, I'll be presented with the various potential impacts AI has identified for me. Next, I head over to the recommendations tab for the next course of action. Once I'm on the recommendations tab, I am presented with the AI suggested potential impacts across citations, control objectives, controls, and even policies. All this information is beautifully structured within our recommendation framework, where I don't just see a list of relevant items, but also a comprehensive view of each. For each item, I can explore details such as its name, description, related information, or any associated linkages or dependencies. Having all this context in one place empowers me to make more informed decisions about which recommendations to move forward with. Now that I have my recommendations in place, I begin the process of marking the impacted areas. I move step by step, reviewing each suggested library item and deciding whether to accept or dismiss it. For instance, under citations, I notice one related to obligations of providers of GPAI with systemic risk, which clearly aligns with the current alert, so I mark it as applicable. I follow the same approach for control objectives, controls, and even policies. Each of these actions is automatically captured within the feedback trail, providing complete transparency and auditability. Once I have finalized the selections, I move to the impacted areas tab, wherein I can see a consolidated view of all the AI assisted identified impacts. From here, I can also add additional items manually basis my judgment, which could include items around risks, risk statements, or others that might be relevant to this regulatory change. To further strengthen my understanding of the overall regulatory change, I can also trigger targeted assessments right from here. We currently support two types of assessments: entity based risk assessments and regulatory assessments. Starting off with the risk assessments. These are sent to the entity owners to evaluate the legal, reputational, financial, and business impacts of the change. For now, I want to send a risk based assessment to Acme Asset Management. Here I can either select one or multiple assessments to trigger at once. So here I just select one and trigger this assessment. In a different tab, I'm logged in as Boris Catino, who has to take this assessment. So I click on this assessment and start the assessment, and then start marking the responses appropriately. It then calculates an inherent risk result on the basis of my responses, which I can then submit, and the same can be viewed by Abel, who is a compliance professional. The next type of assessment is regulatory assessment. Powered by our smart assessment engine, these can be tailored and distributed to specific users or groups, helping capture qualitative insights and deeper contextual understanding. I just need to select a template, select a group or specific assessors I need to run this assessment on, select a due date, and then hit on send. This would trigger an assessment to Allison, who needs to take the assessment. Once both the assessments are complete, I have a comprehensive data-backed view of the true impact of this regulatory change, combining both quantitative risk metrics and qualitative feedback to drive informed decision making. Now that I have my impacted area solid, finally comes action planning, turning insights into measurable response. I go back to Ask Now Assist and generate action plan. This would launch NAP and will start creation of action plan for me. The AI agent now understands the context of the entire alert, learns from similar past regulatory alerts, and considers all identified impacted areas in order to derive an action plan for me. It then generates a complete contextualized action plan with regulatory tasks and associated action tasks. Each regulatory task may involve updates like control updates, citation amendments, or policy revisions, and within each comes action task with clear instructions, such as so that the risk user knows what needs to be done and why it matters. I then review the plan and accept it. Once accepted, I can now go to the regulatory task tab to view my accepted action plan. Now, as I move to the regulatory task tab, I can see the newly created action plan in place. Here, I'm presented with a set of regulatory tasks which act as smart wrappers built around the underlying action task. These tasks are logically grouped based on their purpose, such as control updates, citation amendments, or policy revisions, etc., ensuring complete clarity on how each action contributes to the fulfilling of regulatory requirements. Each action task within it is directly tied to a specific impacted area and is assigned to the appropriate risk user along with detailed instructions that outline what needs to be done. Let's open the first regulatory task related to a control update. When I navigate to the Action Task tab, I can see the actual task created for the user to act upon. What's even better is that AI has intelligently pre-filled all the task instructions by understanding the context of the regulatory alert and pulling in details from the associated impacted areas. These action tasks can now be worked on by the respective users, and once all the assigned tasks are complete, the requirements of the regulatory alert are fully satisfied, ensuring end-to-end compliance closure. Finally, to get a complete picture of everything that has happened around this regulatory alert, I can head over to the 360-degree view. This gives me a unified snapshot of all critical elements, the impacted areas identified, the assessments triggered, and action plans executed, all consolidated in one place. And of course, every detail is also reflected on the main regulatory change management landing page, ensuring full visibility and traceability across the entire lifecycle of the regulatory change. That brings us to the end of the demo. Thank you so much for your time and stay tuned. There's a lot more agentic AI innovation coming your way. Over to you, Nani.